Evening folks, it's Enki the Wandering Hermit. Just doing a second instalment for the 2020 YouTube Pagan Challenge. I was meant to do this about a week ago, the end of February, but as with everything in my life, nothing ever goes to plan. So here I am, first week of March, doing this. I'll try and do another video before the end of this month, so that I'm technically up to date. So in my last video I talked about this idea of growing our own food to minimise the impact of the food industry on the environment and to grow community and things like that. In this video, I don't have the same sort of structure as I had in the last video, so this may be a bit of a ramble, but I want to talk about this idea of getting out into nature more and sort of re-establishing our connection to the natural world, because from what I've noticed, people who have a lifestyle that enables them to actually get out there and be in nature, they're generally happier people. And I think that the more happy people that we have in the world, then the more our world seems to improve, just in tiny amounts, but it all accumulates. So anyway, I'm going to go into that. It's all to do with how thoughts affect reality. So I'll get into that. So first off, this idea of our connection to nature and re-establishing it is because in the wake of the Industrial Revolution, Western society, not so, well, yeah, Eastern society, but not so much Eastern culture, especially in the Southern Hemisphere, has been unaffected by this, but in the North and West, society has become very cut off from the natural world. And people on the whole seem to not only be unfamiliar with the natural world, they seem to reject the natural world in all of its forms. Now, this isn't true of everyone. It's actually a minority of people, mostly people who are born and raised in urban areas. I think I even mentioned in my last video there are people who are born and raised in urban areas by people who were born and raised in urban areas by people who were born and raised in urban areas. So all they've ever known is the urban environment. So anything outside of that, anything that goes back to the natural world, they respond to with fear and revulsion. Now, as I say, this is just a minority of people, really. I mean, lots of people, a huge swathe of the population, live either in rural or suburban areas. Now, suburbs, like where I live, surrounded by nature anyway. So we develop a natural familiarity with that anyway. In most cases, you get the odd few people who are clean freaks, living out in the suburbs, and they don't want you to play in the dirt or anything else. But again, they're few in number. But the collective society as a whole has become disconnected from nature, and we need to rebuild the bridge between human consciousness and the natural world. I think this is obviously due to social conditioning, but I think it's propagated by the media, it's propagated by conglomerate companies as well. One thing that's always puzzled me is, these antibacterial sprays and these antibacterial wipes that kill 99.9% of all bacteria, including the beneficial ones. This worries me because it's part of a natural process. Exposure to pathogens allows us to build up an immunity to them. So if we're living in a near sterile environment, we're not going to develop a strong immune system. So that if we have an outbreak of something such as coronavirus, that we don't have an immunity to, even though it's very similar genetically to the common flu virus, we don't have an immunity to it. Perhaps if we'd been exposed to more pathogens, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be affecting the population as badly as it is. Just a theory. But there are a lot of pathologists who look at this sterilization of the Western environment and think, well, this is harmful. And it's not just on a biological level. The fact that we're taught to fear the natural world, we're taught to fear dirt, we're taught to fear things that upset the unnatural cleanliness of our lives. It affects us on a psychological and spiritual level as well. I think that if we address that and overcome it, then we can, and I'll talk about how this benefits the world as a whole in a moment. But it benefits us, and then in doing so we benefit the world. So the point of this video is get out more. I understand that people in the pagan community typically are people who like the outdoors anyway, by and large. I mean, I know I do. I live in a suburb in a semi-detached 3-bedroom house, but I've got gardens that I enjoy working on. I've got fields nearby that I enjoy walking in. I've got woodlands just up the road that I enjoy wandering in. I like getting dirty. And I think that's because I wasn't taught to fear dirt as a kid. That's a problem with Western society. We're taught to fear getting dirty. We're taught to reject, interacting with animals and plants because, oh, well, you might catch germs. Don't get dirt on your clothes. Don't go rolling in the grass. Don't go playing in the bushes. You'll get dirt on your clothes. That's just one example of how we've been psychologically pulled away from nature. Another way, I think, largely due to, I'm not going to say Christianity because the other Abrahamic traditions do it as well. So I'm just going to say Abrahamism, is to fear our own nature, not just nature outside, but the nature within us. We're taught to reject a desire to acquire material things. We're taught to reject our own impulses, our own desires. We're taught to judge people based upon whether they act in accordance with a set of virtuous values or whether they act in accordance with their own inherent nature. And typically people who act in accordance with their own nature we deem to be degenerates. That seems to be the way that society has developed over the generations. And I think as a result of that, people who want to be a little bit wild and a little bit rebellious and they want to go out into the woods at night and howl at the moon, people automatically look at them as strange. And for a large number of people who care about what other people think of them, this is damaging on a psychological level and on a spiritual level. Excuse me. So these are things that we need to address. We need to reconnect to nature. So going for walks, whether it's in a public park, whether it's across fields, whether it's in woodlands, whether it's, just sitting in your garden. If you have a space on your land where you can grow things, grow them. Not necessarily food, like I said in the last video, but just plants. Just plant a tree, plant some flowers. If you've got a paved yard, dig it up and put grass down. Just having natural growing living things around us is healing to us. And this is where I go into the idea of thoughts affecting the physical reality. I'm going to talk from a pantheistic perspective here. If everything is contained within a single mind, which we'll, for the sake of ease, call God. This is my individual belief, by the way. This is just for ease of example. If everything in existence is contained within God, and human beings are said to be created in the image thereof, then that means that everything outside of us is mirrored within us. So if we take steps to heal ourselves, then that is mirrored in the external world. Now, obviously, you've got the Hermetic maxim, as above, so below, as within, so without. If you apply this principle in everyday life, then the more you heal yourself, the more you heal the world at large. And the more that individuals heal themselves, the more individuals heal themselves, the more that will manifest in the natural world around us. The fact that we've lived and been raised in a society that makes us fear ourselves and fear the natural world that we are a part of and that is mirrored within us, it creates imbalance, and that creates illness, it creates discord, and that illness and discord within ourselves is then made manifest outside. And we see that through environmental disasters, bushfires, flash floods, drought, things like that. But it's also mirrored in things like pandemics. The more that we are ill psychologically and spiritually, the more that's going to manifest physically. The more we're going to be finding these strange pathogens coming out of nowhere and decimating our population. Because we're spiritually sick. And I think that needs to be addressed. And the more time we spend in nature, the more we heal ourselves spiritually. Now, not just in the sense of the universe is mirrored within you, but I also believe that our thoughts and our words affect physical reality. It's, been suggested and demonstrated through things such as the double slit experiment that observation of our surroundings actually limits the potential of our surroundings and actually governs the outcome of certain potentialities. Expectation often affects probability. And a prime example is when you flip a coin. I've always been taught a little rhyme whenever I flip a coin. It was tails never fails. And because it was so catchy, it stuck in my mind. Whenever I flip a coin, I go tails never fails, even just in my mind. And 8 times out of 10, it'll land on tails. Now that might not work for everybody, but in my personal experience, that expectation influences the outcome. It shifts probability in my favour. And so, if we apply this principle to absolutely everything in our daily lives, and if everybody did this, we would probably find that our expectations of reality would be made manifest on a larger scale for everyone to see. Eastern traditions obviously hold this idea in high regard because on numerous occasions you'll find like tens of thousands of Buddhist monks getting together and meditating on world peace to try to bring that into being. We have the idea of the thought form, that if you focus on something visually within your mind and you put so much of your intention into making that manifest, then eventually it will manifest in some form. And the more people that do this, the more likely it is that it's going to manifest. So I think bringing that back to the original point, if we take steps to reconnect with nature and appreciate and respect the natural world, then our intention of honouring the natural world and pouring out our intention into healing the natural world, it's more likely that the natural world will start to heal itself. We may see a reduction in natural disasters. We may see a reduction in the number of strange illnesses coming about. We may see a reduction in the number of species becoming endangered. The ice caps might decide to start growing again rather than shrinking. Now, I do believe that this is part of a natural process. I don't think it's solely due to humans that the ice caps are melting, don't get me wrong. But I think we are speeding up the process. And maybe it's not necessarily just through our actions, but it's also through our thoughts. All life on this planet is intrinsically linked to the planet itself. And the more the planet is adversely affected, the more that the denizens of that planet are adversely affected, and vice versa. So we can either approach this environmental crisis by trying to fix the actual physical manifestation of discord outside, which is a damn sight harder, because there are so many other conflicting factors that prevent us from achieving our goals of reversing pollution, reversing climate damage, environmental damage and things. Or we can approach it from the other way, which is work from within, outwards. And it starts by healing the self. And the easiest way to heal yourself is spend time in nature. And just appreciate the trees, appreciate the grass, the flowers, the bird song, appreciate the scurrying of a squirrel. You know, if you live in, a wilder part of the world, like in the Australian outback, or if you live out in the wilderness in America, or if you live in the tundra of Siberia, then of course there's going to be even more wild nature for you to appreciate. And it's about really finding how that nature is mirrored within you, and appreciating that and integrating it into yourself and understanding yourself more, because then, again, as I say, we heal mentally and spiritually, and that is made manifest outside of ourselves. So I'm at 16 minutes now, so I'm actually going to leave it there. It's a simple point, something that everybody in the pagan community, everyone in the wider community can implement, but again, people in the pagan community are more likely to understand these ideas and take them on board. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has given you a bit of inspiration to go out there and connect with the Great Mother. Let's all just work together to heal ourselves, heal our society, and heal the world. Because we can do it. And the more we believe it, the more likely it is to happen. Okay, so until my next video, I wish you all a very good day or night wherever you are in the world. May your gods be with you. Bye for now.